Library Mouse, and today let's talk about anxiety in books and libraries and coping with that, and how books and libraries can help or hinder your anxiety. I had originally touched on this in a tag video a while back. I wish I could find the video, but I can't. And someone had said, oh, that would be interesting for you to talk about. So here I am. I wasn't sure how I wanted to chat about it, but I think it's just cool to just sit and have a conversation. As soon as I stop my cat from eating a plant. So I definitely am an anxious person. I am still an anxious person after all of these years. I cope with it differently than I used to, but when I think back to when was the time, like before and after, like what caused me to start becoming an anxious person? I don't know if other people can pinpoint when, but I feel like I have a good idea of when it happened. When I was in the 3rd grade, we went up to the 4th grade. We would switch classes, and one of the teachers there was a man, I will not name his name, we'll call him Mr. V, who looked like Tiny Tim. If you don't know who Tiny Tim is, I'm going to put a picture here. So Tiny Tim in the 70s was a long-haired man, played the ukulele, and sang Tiptoe Through the Tulips in a very high-pitched voice. And my teacher looked like that. And he was unstable. Looking back now, he should not have been a teacher. He should not have been allowed to teach. But he was a person that was unpredictable. He was unpredictable in his anger, in his actions, and I became very nervous going into his room. And one day he went around the classroom out of the blue, and remember, this is the 70s. And I think you were as likely to find a child with these items as you were today. But he went around the room and yelled in everyone's face, asking if we had a comb and a hanky, because every well-prepared person or child should always have a hanky and a comb with them. And nobody in the class had a hanky and a comb except one person, my friend Kevin, who lived down the street, who was a little boy who always had very short, well-groomed hair, and he suffered from nosebleeds. So guess what he had? A comb and a handkerchief with him. And we didn't use tissues, we had hankies. And he brought him up to the front of the class and bestowed upon him, accolades, and just screamed and yelled in our faces to the rest of us, like individually going around to every person, do you have a comb and a hanky? Well, after that, I went home and I told my mom I had to have that. I had to have it by the next day. And the rest of the year, I just kept a hanky with a comb and one of those little pink erasers, all wrapped up like this, in my hand, under my desk, ready if he ever asked me again. But of course, he never did, because he was very unpredictable. So there were other things. And when I moved to 4th grade, I was like, please don't let me have him. And guess what? I had him. And then when I moved to 5th grade, I was ecstatic because 3rd and 4th grade switched. 5th grade stayed self-contained. Well, guess what? The year I moved up to 5th grade, they switched, and I had him again for math. And I every day was horrible. I used to love school. I didn't want to go to school. I didn't want to have him. I was so afraid every day of going into his classroom. And that started all of my anxious feelings about school. I missed a lot of school. I faked stomach aches like you wouldn't believe. In elementary school, in middle school, in high school, not as much. But elementary school and middle school were bad. I moved in middle school, and my anxiety then ramped up, and it came out physically. So I had to wear sweaters because I was just sweated all the time. I didn't want to shake people's hands. I had to really watch what kind of fabric I wore in my shirts, but my parents bought my clothes, my mother did, and she didn't get it. She thought I was silly, and I was wearing sweaters. It was 80 degrees and I'd have a sweater on. And that's how my anxiety came out in elementary and middle school, all the way through high school, all the way through adulthood. Physically, that's how it came out, so you could see it. Inside, racing heart, fight or flight mode, all the time, every day, because I was very nervous about what was predictable and what was not. Even to becoming a teacher, it was the predictability. And assemblies, hated assemblies, because I was so afraid I would get called on stage. I would rather just miss an assembly or say I was sick that day because I did not want to go to an assembly. So anxiety has really, it really played a role in many of the things that I did. Now, I also, though, did not let it stop me from doing the things that I really loved. So even though I was very anxious, I went away for 5 weeks in the summer to Pennsylvania Governor's School for the Arts for writing. And I went to college to become a teacher in the hopes that my classroom would be better than the classrooms that I had in elementary school. Not realizing that, the unpredictability of how students are going to behave is going to continue in your classroom. You are going to take kids to assemblies and they're going to get teachers on that stage. You are going to work with people that, you don't get along with or who are going to confront you. You're going to have students in your classroom who don't listen to you, who throw desks and swear, and that really contributed to my anxiety. I have a letter I wrote to a pen pal back in probably 8th grade, maybe 8th grade, 9th grade. I had gone to see the doctor. I asked my mother to take me to the doctor because my heart was racing so fast all the time, and I was nervous all the time. And my doctor was old school. And in this pen pal letter, which I never sent, I said that the doctor told me I was a type A personality and I should just take up jogging. And throughout my life, I have tried to become a runner and I'm just not a runner. But that's the anxiety now as an adult has moved on to more of a worry. Sometimes irrational worries about things. I feel like that character in A Series of Unfortunate Events, if you're familiar with that book, who worries about everything. And then it all comes true to her. So I still have that worry that, about things that might happen, even if there's no reason to worry about it. So that I have a foreboding joy that Brene Brown talks about in Daring Greatly, where great things can happen, but then I'm like, well, I don't want to be too happy because what if this happens? Or what if that happens? I need to be prepared to be unhappy or to be anxious. So I still, those are the things, and that's how it manifests now. So what does all of this have to do with reading and libraries? Well, throughout my life, libraries have been a sanctuary. They have been a safe place. As soon as I was able to realize that I could escape to a library during a study hall. Now, I've always loved libraries, always, from the time I was a child. But round about middle school, when I could say like, I don't want to be in the study hall. Everyone is out of their minds. And people would be like, why do you want to read? It's study hall. Hello. I would escape to a library. The far reaches of the library, the farthest away from any human I could possibly get. If I had a study carrel, that was even better. But the library was always the place that I would go when I was feeling anxious in schools. Either that or nature, but it was, as a person growing up, it was always the library, always, when I had nowhere else that I could go. In college, it was where I went. Even when I went away to governor's school, if it just all got to be like, oh my gosh, I need to get away, it was the library. And I loved the fact that you couldn't talk. I loved the fact that it was quiet and it was filled with old books, and you could sit and read and nobody thought like it was strange, and nobody bothered you. And there was that predictability about being in a library that I loved. And I counted on the librarian to keep order, because my high school librarian did not keep order, and everyone went down there and just screwed around. And I hated it because I felt like they had taken away like my safe place. I'm like, don't follow me here. Go find somewhere else to misbehave. And to this day, when I get into a library, I just feel so relaxed. And that is why I really want to make a library in my house. It's different. I love being at home. My whole house is like my safe place, but if I had a library, I think it would elevate it even more. And then as far as reading, how it has affected my reading with anxiety. So it really has affected the genres that I read. So, for example, I don't read horror, and I don't read true crime. Very, very rarely. I don't read those two genres because, first of all, I don't like the anxious feeling that I get when I'm reading them. And second, my imagination is good enough. I already imagine all of the things that could happen in a horror book. I can imagine it very vividly, and then I feel it. So I don't need to read it. And with true crime, it's the same. I can already imagine the things that people could possibly do. And I don't need to read about somebody who actually committed those crimes. Like, I don't want to know what the victim felt like. I don't want to feel it myself. I don't take any pleasure from that at all. I just don't enjoy those books, and it's, I believe, mostly because of my anxiety. That it has contributed to what genres I read. I like books that have nice endings, that maybe perhaps some people might think, rose-colored glasses, not realistic endings, but I like a book with a happy ending. And I enjoy books that are realistic. You would think that I would like fantasy, but I like realistic books. I like contemporary fiction. I like knowing that the characters, even if it's something tragic, I don't want the focus of the book to be on the tragedy, but I want the focus to be on how the main character has coped with whatever life has thrown their way. I like a powerful book like that, with the characters who are strong and who are able to work through things. That's what I enjoy in a book. Now, on the flip side, I have never read a book that has helped me really with my anxiety. I do enjoy Mel Robbins, but I have not read any of her books. I've only watched her on her podcast. So if anyone has any books that they're like, yes, this literally will change your life. Because I feel like so many books just tell you the same things over and over again. And what it all boils down to, it's it's in your mind. You really just you have to talk yourself through things, and you have to get to the point where you know how you're going to feel, and you know the feeling, and you're just kind of going to ride with it. But anyway, I would love to hear more from people who maybe can connect to what I said and how libraries and books have helped me through the years. Especially, one way that the books have helped me, if I can find a character who's gone through the same thing or who feels the same way, and then they work through it in a realistic way. I find those books to be helpful. One character I loved was Eleanor Oliphant. I felt she was a very endearing character to me. But anyway, if you have found any books that you're like, you need to read this, drop them below. If you can relate at all, I would love to hear your story. But anyway, hope that you enjoyed that little a little talk about libraries and books and anxiety, and just my moment to be vulnerable, I suppose. Anyway, I am off to do some reading since it's a nice rainy day, even though it's extremely warm. And I will see you on my next video. Happy reading!